Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to Doing Business in Bentonville. I'm Andy Wilson. I'm your host today. I'm so excited to announce our program this morning. You're going to love it. You're going to love it. It's what you're going to do. So my guest today, let's just get right to it, okay? Leon Nicholas, welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
We're so glad to have you and his counterpartner here, Kerry Bailey. Welcome.
Good morning.
But let's go to the next principle.
Yeah, the next big principle, I think, for Kerry and me is just how important analytics have become. How the retailers are in many ways taking the power of their retail media networks, and also just their access to consumer shopping behavior, particularly with increase in membership programs, to really digest all of this information a lot more, and then be able to leverage it with more precision to offer. We're getting closer. Mm-hmm. We're much closer here to more personalized pricing. I know there's controversy around them with dynamic pricing and all that, but my point is that you've got the confluence here of data and technology, right? And to some extent, artificial intelligence starting to come in. And you put those three notions together, and you have the ability to be able to offer shoppers a much more precision around when they get offers, how they get offers, what the offer itself is for the shopper. And I think this use of analytics to move from trends to actions much more quickly, to identify more quickly. I used to be a analyst, in the market, and I had to sit down and, old school, I had to read stuff. I had to read a 10K. I'd tell my wife, leave me alone. I spent half a day here reading the Walmart 10K. Well, today, and this is wrong, I think, this is bad, because I sound like an old fogey here, but say it, but you don't have to read the 10K. You can have AI say, tell me the top 10 things that I should know. Mm-hmm. And Kerry can do the same thing. Tell me the top that a guy like Kerry Bailey should know. Mm-hmm. My point with all of this is that the rapidity of more prescriptive analytics that is available on the fly now to people, I think we're setting the stage for what will be the next revolution in promotions. But I see this, and we've talked about this before, I see this in the context of the larger ability of retailers to monetize their assets. And increasingly what they are doing is saying, I've got this data here, I'm going to monetize that. I'm going to monetize my footfall. I'm going to monetize eyeballs, monetize clicks. I'm going to monetize my supply chain. So you see the growth of membership programs. You see the increase in Walmart's fulfillment systems and the ways that they're operating now largely as a commerce agent, the growth of the retail media network. Mm-hmm. And all of those provide ancillary revenue streams that enhance their operating profit, I think, in substantial ways. We're into double digits now, percentage of operating profit that is driven by things other than selling product to consumers. Right. And that's a big deal, I think, for certainly for a Walmart. Mm-hmm. So that's the way I'm thinking about this, Kerry. You probably have a lot more to add there, but I think this is a major phenomenon that's rolling through all of retail in terms of creating what do they Walmart call it the new flywheel.
Yeah, I like your example of that. I wrote that down on you, flywheel, because we're all trained about the flywheel. We get that, we think about that, and when you said the new flywheel, it hit me like you're exactly right. It is different. Yeah, it is different now in the retail business and the analytical business.
It's the added component. It's the added component, I think, and I think. When I look among our community, I think the thing that I'm most appreciative of is the fact that from a supplier base, for example, they're learning the right questions to ask. Mm-hmm. Because we always knew we had data, but we always also knew what we didn't have in data. Mm-hmm. And now as that data is coming even more forward, filling in the gaps, I think AI will be a another part of that that'll help paint the brush across the spectrum. I think the suppliers have learned what questions to ask in that with Datascape. And so I think as we grow, and I think those things are driving new innovations even, because of how to speak to the shopper, the kinds of things that the gaps that are left in the, either left in the mix or left in the undecided space by the shopper. And I think as the retailer gets more of that intelligence from the data, artificial or not, they're going to be able to help serve the supplier community, for example, as to what's needed at the shelf, what's needed in that shopper space. And I think they'll help drive new product. It'll help drive new innovation. It's going to help drive new services, because the shopper is always going to want more, right? They're always going to want more. And so I think as the data starts to serve that train, we're going to see a lot of growth. I think it's an exciting time for retail, albeit as tough as it is. Retail's never been easy, but albeit as tough as it is now, I think it's still an exciting time for retail to reinvent how they speak, and I think we're seeing that again.
I think as long as, and you pointed this out, Kerry, and your comments about innovation, as long as the consumer benefits.
Right.
And one of the, and I'm not trying to be controversial about it, but one of the concerns that I have in all of this, is that we do take our eye off the shopper. There is a danger in that, to the extent that revenue starts to be achieved through selling ads or selling data, or your customer becomes, say, the third-party merchants on marketplace. They become the customer. You're selling to them. The danger I see, and it's just a danger. I have all the faith in the world that certainly Walmart is probably the most shopper focused company in the world. But there is a danger that it takes the eye off the ball of the shopper in an effort to enhance the ancillary revenue. I don't know. Do you see that, or am I just worried?
You and I kicked that ball a little bit yesterday when we were walking the store, and I pushed back and I said, well, if they were really taking the eye off the ball, you wouldn't see all this beautification effort that's happening in our stores right now. I mean, Walmart's investment in the store itself, I think, is a great reflection that they're not taking their eye off the ball, albeit they're growing in that new flywheel. There's still a group of people who that's their job, is to focus on that shelf and focus on that appeal to the consumer. So I think it's a real, I understand completely where you're seeing. And I would say that I hope our artificial intelligence doesn't take over our natural intelligence, right? But I think our natural intelligence group that's focused on the shelf, focused on the mix, focused on the price points, all those fundamentals, the mechanics of retail, I don't think that's ever going to leave Bentonville.
And I think that's the key to it right there.
I do too.
At the end of the day, the old, we talked about Sam Walton before and Walmart's ethos. The moment you get away from price, right? Price to the consumer, you drift apart, you drift away. This was the Walmart revolution, in my opinion. And how Walmart revolutionized all of retail. When they found a savings, right, they didn't pocket it. They gave it back to the consumer in terms of a lower price on the shelf that was visible. That was the productivity loop.
That's exactly
right. I mean, that was we had it all of us had it drilled into us.
That's right.
But there are wide swaths of American retail, if you think back to say the 70s. That was just, completely unprepared for this idea that you would actually focus on selling to the customer and using price as that lever, to drive increased, effectively shopper productivity in your own box,
right?
And so you're in a very different time now, and I think you're right when you see that these investments get plowed back into value for the consumer, where it's evident to them. Then I think you're safe in that way, because it always has to be it always has to benefit the shopper. I know this sounds kind of quaint, but if it doesn't benefit the shopper, if the shopper doesn't benefit from it in a visible way, you do run that risk of running a business other than one that is shopper focused.
I love that. I love your ask the right questions. You got information now to help you do that. We always knew that it was critical to ask the right questions, and the only way to do that is have the knowledge. Right. And then that's how you do it. And I thought Sam was always great at that. When I would sit in meetings when Sam would come into the room and he would start asking questions, only because he'd been up since 4 a.m. studying the data. Right. Then he would come in and ask the questions. Right. But he had the data first. Right.
But that's a true merchant.
Yeah. Well, I want to go to that. Is being a merchant still important in this space?
Oh, I love that. I love that. Andy, I said, may I help you for the first time when I was 9 years old. And I was raised in retail. My family owned a store. Mm-hmm. You don't ever lose that if you've done that. And I think our merchant teams today, how they're grown up and how they practice in the space is different today, no doubt. Mm-hmm. They have a lot more things to worry about. We all had to worry about a shelf when my family owned a store. Yeah. There wasn't omni-channel. Mm-hmm. So today those merchants are, their time is spread among a lot of other considerations, a multitude of them. But I think that their information, they're such a great information audience today. The merchants of today, they're just really good at their information. But I think that what I'm seeing, going back to what the practices of the mechanics are, they still understand they're buying an item and their role in that space. And you and I talked about it a little bit last night at dinner. Mm-hmm. Their role in that space is to qualify that item. Okay. And it's about qualifying that item at the value point that Leon was talking earlier is going to make sense for the consumer. Mm-hmm. And there's going to be multiple value points in their mod. Okay. Mm-hmm. Their modular's got to present a good, better, best, or high, low, medium, whatever. But they've got to find that mix in there. That's the mix. But I think our merchants today have obviously more information than they've ever had. But I think the ground level schooling, the ground level practices of training inside Walmart, my goodness, the investments they're making there. Our merchants are learning faster. They're on a much faster learning curve. And they've got more data available to them to exercise. But they're also, because of marketplace, they're getting an opportunity to experiment. Yeah. I cannot tell you how exciting it is to see how many merchants are asking for tests or pilots or, Sam's Club just opened the new iHub over there, the Club Hub, and the Club Hub is all about innovation and driving new opportunities. I mean, it's really so exciting to me.
The sources, that are available. I think the challenge for the merchant today, that the outcome is still the same thing, right? And we're still talking about commerce. If the moment we start talking about the data, that's a problem. It's got to be the data on behalf of the shopper. Right. So I think it's the merchant's capacity to synthesize, and maybe AI can help them do that. To synthesize amongst all of these various, because you're still making the fundamental trade-offs here between sales and inventory and margin. Mm-hmm. You're still wrestling with those fundamentals there that a merchant has always had to wrestle with. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's more input today. There's more stuff. The shopper's more complicated. The route to shopper is a lot more complicated. Right. It used to just be you put it on the shelf, and they showed up. The shopper showed up, and there it was. How about that? Yeah. And now you've got so many different ways to reach the shopper, so many different channels, so many different platforms, and all those things. But the fundamentals are still there. And as long as I think retailers like Walmart retain that, call it a merchant mindset, or it's a, you were talking about there, and it just really solidified for me just this idea of, you're buying items. And you're trying to determine customer conversion, and you're trying to monetize that conversion, and you're balancing these different trade-offs. I don't think that fundamental job has changed. So for God's sake, if a retailer gets away from that sort of merchant culture or merchant mindset, I would argue they cease being a retailer.
Right. Great discussion. Wow. I love this. This is so good. Thank you. Let's keep going, though. We got so much more. Okay, our third principle.
Yeah, the third is about sustainability. And, for a lot of folks, they might say, well, we've been talking about sustainability for years. And I would argue, look, what happened before COVID was a lot of companies put in place scorecards. A lot of them did it around 2015 or so, right? They put in place scorecards because we got to measure this and we measure to get done and all that. So you made scorecards and you made beautiful websites and all that stuff. And then COVID hit, right? And people were less focused on they were focused on sustaining their lives. Right?
Right.
Absolutely. So, they're going to be a little less focused on sustainability. I think we've come out of COVID, and a lot of people are taking a look back at those retailers, looking at those scorecards again and saying, oh, wait a minute. There are a lot of goals here that back in 2015 we said do in 2025, and that's 10 years from now. 2025 is, in a few months.
Yeah, you're right.
It's a few months away. Yeah. And so suddenly now you've got a lot of people who are looking with precision at a lot of metrics. Mm-hmm. So metrics are going to matter, scorecards matter, and much more precision around that goal and this goal, and then turning that back in our industry, obviously, back to the supplier. Mm-hmm. I think the bigger context is a lot more government oversight, mm-hmm. A lot more federal. And actually, I would argue a lot of it is at the state level. State-level regulations, places like California, which has an outsized importance, right. Obviously for a lot of retailers, less so for Walmart, but a lot of retailers. So you got regulatory, you've got a consumer who today, particularly the younger consumer that Walmart is attracting, and an upper-income consumer that Walmart is increasingly attracting, particularly through pickup at store and the membership program. Those shoppers tend to disproportionately care and be willing to pay for sustainable packaging, sustainable sorts of things. So I think the context is all there, and I think, and you can probably speak to this better than I do, Kerry, but it's how does that manifest itself differently though for us at for Walmart and for suppliers calling on Walmart. Obviously, the volume is there; it's everybody's biggest customer. But how does that play itself out for them? I think it's a little more nuanced.
No, well, first I would say that sustainability is not just Walmart's issue. I wrote down sustainability is everyone's issue, right? And you're right. I mean, sustainability was suspended during COVID, if you want to call it that. It was just suspended. It wasn't that we didn't care, so we couldn't care at that moment. And so at that moment, it just had to lay there for a moment. And so now as we're coming about, everyone at retail is considering in every decision-making process what the sustainability factor is to that decision. And I think it's really evident in how we're addressing packaging, simply put. How we're talking to suppliers about their new product introductions. How simple can packaging be? How simple can we be at delivering items to consumers, be it in a package or not? We talked about SIOC. Prior to COVID, it was SIOC, right? Ship in own container. That was the moniker. Today we talk about, does it even need a container?
Right.
And if we do a good job at a primary packaging level, our organization being responsible for some of that introduction, are we addressing at a primary packaging level the right kinds of things to constitute a less packaging environment? And I think as retail in general looks at how do we create less packaging by doing better packaging, that investment in that space, and particularly as we take on some of those mandates, the removal or reduction in plastics, removal or reduction in single use, all of those kind of avenues towards more sustainable practices are driving a portion of every decision that's being made today. And what I think is really healthy, and I've had a number of conversations most recently as we're flipping the year, is what can we do now? And what is the next step? And then where do we want to be? Because none of this happens overnight, right? None of this happens overnight. Every organization that has lines set up, whether they're filling cans, soup, or whether they're, they're in the agribusiness, it doesn't matter. Where any product starts or originates and how it gets packaged, there's going to have to be a migration of what can I do today that makes a difference? And then where do I want to be in my next step as we go forward? And then ultimately, because of those requirements that are out there in pledges that were made
10 years ago.
Where do we want to be when we get to there? That's that future component. So as organizations plan today, it's about what they can do now. What's the next step for my organization? And then where do I want to be when I land? And I think that's just driving an enormous amount of considerations and a lot of, within our business, think about it, the things that we're doing at a paper science level. It's probably never been a better time to be in the paper business of some sort in the packaging side of it
But we need paper to do more.
But we need paper to do more. And so as we're sciencing that now and we're figuring out how we can use all of our fibers, literally, within our network, we're bringing about new products and we're bringing about innovation. And we're having good, meaty conversations about where we can make an impact today, and then where we think we can be at some juncture in the future. Because
and it's testing a lot of things and testing a lot of our assumptions. We talk to people who say, "Oh, you can't do that. You got to have plastic to do that." Well, wait a second.
Right.
Don't bet against science here. Right. And oftentimes there are new techniques and new investments in collaboration going on out there. But I think it gets back to this. We're talking about e-commerce. The sustainability and e-commerce conversation go together. Right. Now, more and more people obviously getting, their recycle bin is bigger than their we'll call it a regular landfill trash bin. People are packaging is more visible to them, and I think we've got to get as Smurfit Westrock, we've got to get a lot better at understanding what I've called omni-channel packaging that will work. For e-commerce delivery,
right.
Will work for drones. Let's be honest. This is as this rises, a fit into the locker, curbside, and sell off the shelf. Right. And we're probably going to learn some things by thinking about the endpoint destination of the product. That it has to be functional, but how do we make it be sustainable and functional? Right. And not lose not say that there's a trade-off. Well, how do we diminish those trade-offs in a way? But I don't think this is any longer just something that we're going to be able to take a pass on.
Right.
I think this is something that is going to it's going to be very much a mandate out there, and I think that it's going to play itself out. I think the question is, what is we could call it the sustainability elasticity.
Yes.
What is the shopper? And I think in the case of Walmart, what are they willing to pay for this?
I'm going to ask you a question, Leon. You talk about mandates. It's one thing when the government says you got to do something. When does the shopper get a mandate?
Yeah, that's right.
When does the shopper mandate what's going to happen?
Yeah, I think that's great. I think it's a great point.
Yeah, I wish I had an answer to that. Yeah. And I think it depends on the shopper, right? And I think it also depends on what they're shopping for.
Yeah.
Right? If you're buying, something that is, completely throwaway, then your lower income consumer historically hasn't cared as much about that. The upper income consumer on that, though, will. You go to a high end coffee shop, right? And the whole package is as if you could plant it in the ground and it would grow flowers.
Yeah. And I think I always said that the shopper creates the mandate.
Well, yeah. At the end of the day,
they vote with dollars.
Yeah. I think the point is, I know I am concerned that my recycle bin has more in it than my trash bin,
right.
And that bothers me, quite frankly. There's too much still in that recycle bin.
Yeah.
Right.
And that we could do something with.
Mm-hmm.
And I think more and more people are there.
More sensitive.
And I think your company, too, is in an excellent position to help the consumer figure that out, too, from education and some of the things that you're talking about. I think this is a very critical topic, and you all did a great job talking about it. I really hope that we can learn from you and your company, and that you can supply us information. We'll love to put that on our website as you navigate this. Because I think you all can become leaders in this to the consumer. I really do.
I'm glad you said that, Andy, because I want to pay credence to some of our audience. We, as an organization, we're very open door as far as inviting our customers in the retail community to come see our paper science. What you learn walking through our labs and what you see taking place would give you a lot of faith that you're going to see improvement in your recycle bin because of the things we're doing. And I had a conversation with a merchant just last week, and he took me up on my offer and is going to come visit our paper lab, to just learn more and to see what the future holds, because we can provide a little bit of a crystal ball there in that space, and I think that's exciting.
Thank you for doing that. Yeah. We appreciate that. Okay, we're going to talk supply chain. Right?
Yeah. Jeez. We're in the right place to do that. Is that all we're going to talk about?
Oh, wow. This is so good.
Oh, what the heck? Let's talk supply chain. Yeah, it seems like the right thing to do. And it's. I think it has always been said that, Walmart in particular, I think is, and I say this with respect to all retailers, but Walmart's the best supply chain optimizing supply chain company in the world. Let's just
that makes me feel good to say that, because growing up there and spending almost 30 years there, I've seen us go from our distribution center, our warehouse, to a distribution center, and the transformation through the years and the hard work that so many people at Walmart and others did. I appreciate you saying that. Thank you.
There's no question in my mind about that. I think today what has changed is the desire to. A lot of people said, you remember these days, back a couple of decades or so ago, thinking, Walmart squeezed all the efficiency out of the supply chain they're going to get. There's no more to get out of here. We got to do other stuff, because the supply chain is optimized. Well, I think we fast forward and we realize we're not even close, right?
Right.
And I think the big thing that has changed is the intersection of supply chain with technology. That today, I don't know, and I'm not a tech expert. Kerry knows more about a lot of this stuff than I do, but just the RFID tag alone, we haven't even begun, I think, to really capture the value that has. The smart supply chain, the identifiable supply chain. We got caught as an industry off guard during COVID.
Mm. Boy, we did, didn't we?
Okay. And you know what the fundamental problem was? We didn't know where our stuff was. Now, imagine being in the airline industry, right? And someone saying, hey, where's plane number 425? And I'm not sure. It's somewhere between Dubuque and Iowa Sioux City and somewhere, right? We didn't know where the stuff was. Now, that's that's an indictment, and shame on us and all that. But I think coming out of COVID, we've come to understand that the smart supply chain is going to be absolutely critical to unlocking the next step change in efficiency. It's not only efficiency, though. You have a convergence of a number of other things here that are happening at the same time in this smart supply chain. So certainly supply chain number one. The second is, better identification of theft, fraud identification, the capacity to use smart packaging to engage with the consumer, right? To ask a question or tell me how to, fix my lawnmower, which I do all the time. Scan here to get information. And then the other one is sustainability, the topic we were talking about just before this. I mean, you could say, my product is recyclable, but does it get recycled? Is increasingly, a question. And I think the intersect of technology with the packaging enables you to run to run metrics on an end-to-end supply chain, literally from plant to all the way through to recycling, to say how well are we incenting and at what points are we succeeding along the way to incent a circular supply chain. So I see the smart supply chain as really inevitable. I think we're going to be at a point where everything is going to be identifiable, all the way down to individual primary packages. I just think it's a no-brainer. I don't know, Kerry, what you think. I mean, but it's, to me, it's just inevitable.
Yeah, I had to smirk a little bit when you were talking about the period, the COVID period, because I was one. I think I can almost recall the day when I was pre-COVID, and I said, the supply chain is so good, it's hard to find a penny these days. And it took one pandemic to prove how fragile we were. And coming out of that fragility, I think we all found the new questions to ask, the new space to explore, and really tighten up our supply chain. And this intelligence part, this data, this tracking, this ability to have a smart supply chain is supplying a lot of answers to questions that we had. Where's it at? Okay, we're finding that now, and we're taking strides to close that gap quickly. Into your point about circular economy, we understand now we can put readers at our MRFs, our material recycling facilities. We can see those packages that are smart become products, and then we can see them become the waste cycle. Our circular economy is this close to being really having a nice bow on it and understanding what goes out and what comes back and how we implore it back into our systems. You have to understand, for example, we have a very large, our organization, Smurfit Westrock, has a very large contractual obligation in the Walmart waste stream, and we take back an exorbitant amount of our own corrugate back into our system. It represents a healthy double-digit percentile of fiber back into our mill stream. And those things are important. When I have that conversation with merchants about, would you like to know how much of your material gets recycled? We can help you with that. And you close the loop on that, and you start to understand where your point of value is and understanding sustainability.
Yes.
And we're able to not only monetize that value, but share the dollars. And so investment begets investment, investment begets profit. And so as we're finding that space, that fragility starts to get eroded away. But literally the technology of the package itself today, when you think about how much packaging not only is the billboard for the brand, but it's the billboard for the consumer.
Yes.
To your point, Leon, if I can flash a QR code and I can go to a YouTube that tells me how to put it together, and we're doing that with displays and story. And on the back of every display is a QR code that tells the associate how to assemble it.
Could have used that back when I was 22 years old.
Right.
Building those suckers at 2 a.m.
Our package talking to its entire audience, not just the associate, not just the consumer, but the waste stream. It's talking to the material recycler. Okay? The ability, that package has so many voices now. It's phenomenal. And everyone's getting value out of it. And I think as we talk about our packaging and to that point of origination, where the origin of that is with regard to the product specific, I think that's just, it is that new horizon. It's why I consider not retiring, in the future. So this business is going to continue to get better.
Just think about it as
it's exciting.
You and I both worked retail. I can't tell you the number of times when I would send a dairy clerk, down to check product that was out of code.
Right.
Right. And that was a manual exercise. And in any dairy department, I'm just using that as an example, obviously, it's you've got your DSD, but you've also got a lot of warehouse stuff there in terms of packaged cheeses and yogurts. And you have to look at every single yogurt to see if it's out of code or not.
Yeah.
I don't mean to, right? Well, the other one was we used to have yeast. Packets of yeast, right? And then we kept them in the cold box. Each one of those has an expiration date on it. And the kid would come back, 45 minutes labor. Oh, did I say labor or later?
Yeah, right.
Sorry, I said, store managers, right? Yes, I think it's both. Yes. Would come back and say, here are the 17 items that I found that were out of code. Today, through the technology is there for the product to simply say, here I am and I'm out of code. And you could take what was a 45-minute exercise, and I don't do it in 2 or 3 minutes. We haven't even begun to explore the possibilities here of products. You said it earlier, Kerry, and I wrote it down. The supply chain is speaking to us, and the question is obviously, are we listening?
Yeah, great. Great conversation.
Putting the voice to action.
It really is. It really leads us to our last point, though, and that's automation. Yeah. And That is such a broad topic. We could be here for a long time about that. But we have some time on it. All of the topics, if you think about, we go back for a moment and we think about the shopper, we begin there. And then we got into the analytics, which is critical. And then we talked about sustainability, which is back on target now. It's all back on target. People are concerned about it. The supply chain, again, like you said, we had to have a pandemic to realize how bad we were, and in so many cases. And now, but it leads, that funnel leads all the way down to automation.
Automation becomes catalytic here.
So talk to us about that.
Well, look, the labor crisis that we have had, and it's lessened quite a bit now in the last several months. But the labor crisis that we had expressed itself most acute. In the most acute way, oftentimes at places that were customer facing or that were, we'll call it material handling level. And so the automation that has been put in place has been accelerated. Mm-hmm. Efforts were certainly there prior to this, and you know this world better than I do, Kerry. But I mean, the efforts were put in, but they had to have a high octane boost, which was given to them by the COVID experience, and then by the labor crisis that accompanied that and followed it. I see automation obviously from all the way from the fulfillment center to, my gosh, you've automated the checkout at some point, so you see it all the way out to the front end. Mm-hmm. But the two areas that I focus a lot of my learning, really, and it is learning, in here is the automation that's happening at the fulfillment center, okay, in terms of palletization and depalletization, and the implications that has for secondary packaging. Right, all the secondary packaging that is out there today, and Kerry and I, you know this, when you used to stock freight, you manually took it off the L cart, you ripped off the top, maybe you had a case cutter and you dual stocked it for that box now, that secondary case has to be robo ready, or what Walmart calls automation compliant, and that you're now needing to create secondary packaging that is compliant with the robot's requirements, and that's a very different brain wave to be thinking about. And it gets back to we were talking earlier about omni packaging, or from a sustainability perspective. Here, it's from a sustainability perspective and a density perspective as well. So density becomes the word, the capacity to fit more into here so that the robot can operate it with precision, because the robot's not going to look at the case and say, okay, yeah, I see the writing on there. That's a 24-pack of whatever. Mm-hmm. No, it's going to be, it gets back to identification. Mm-hmm. It's going to be identification of itself. The other area is in micro-fulfillment centers. Mm-hmm. Yes, the secondary case pack matters, right? Because you're packing not for the shelf, but for the tote, right? Mm-hmm. But also the capacity to move that secondary case and have automated induction into the system, so that then the piece-picking robots, right, when you think about goods to robot packaging, that the robot can grab it. Mm-hmm. So you're getting all this whole new language. Mm-hmm. Grabability becomes a word that you would think was a joke, but no, the capacity for a robot to grab it, and not destroy it, whether it's done pneumatically or whatever. So micro-fulfillment centers and fulfillment centers, to me, are core areas where this idea of automation comes in, and how it's going to radically change handling requirements, because it's not going to be people handling anymore. It's going to be robots handling. And so things like bagged packaging, for example, right? Anything that's in a bag, or anything that with a package that is, very unique, or something like that doesn't, or even in the case of secondary packaging, where the top, is and not capable of being sucked up. These are all going to be requirements that are very different for us, that we haven't had to think about, because everything was packaged in order to be stocked or sold off a shelf. And so, you know, Kerry, you're close to a lot of this automation happening here at Walmart. What do you know? Does that resonate, or what else?
You're on top of it. I think the word that came to mind as you were talking about the variances among packages, how precise. Everything's going to be handled very precisely. And so precision is key. And when we look at, if you just roll back for a moment, we were talking about the gaps and the fragility of the supply chain. Well, as those gaps get narrower and narrower because of the introduction of robotics and automation, then precision becomes so vital. And I think when we talk about, we used to talk about touch points, right? Yeah. You were talking about unpacking old cases the old material handling way, you know, get a box, unpack it, put it up on the shelf. Those touch points would be evaporated. I'm going to avoid name dropping, but you know, a certain person that's been influential in our environment has introduced kind of that concept of what's the future of work. The future of work is the absence of labor. Yeah. The absence of labor is constituting the future of work, which is going to be done by robotics and automation. And so when you look at the future of work, how does a box react in the space that it has to perform in?
Yeah.
It has to perform. A package literally has to perform for that automation piece, for that robot. And so as we even work further upstream with the well, just taking the context, growers, agribusiness is becoming even more tech. I mean, tractors have computers that are telling them how many seeds to drop, you know, in the row, literally. And so the constitution of our supply chain is getting tighter and tighter and tighter. Within that constitution, every change we make at a packaging level is affecting how many points within the supply chain. And so today, literally working with, for example, the Walmart automation team, you know, working with them on understanding packaging that's not only got to work for the automation, but it has to work for the grower. Somebody's picking or harvesting product in the field. How does our package work with them? What's their environment with our package? To your point, Leon, about flexible packaging. If a robot grabs a bag, does it know when to stop squeezing? Not
You're going to make quite a mess in the fulfillment center.
I mean, artificial intelligence or not, where we have to really, I mean, that's an Elon Musk question, I guess. Can he get there, you know, with his robots? But, you know, how hard do they grip that? So all of the things that we're considering in packaging development are all about understanding upstream what it does to that product influence and downstream what it does at retail. And everyone in between, or everything, it's not just everyone anymore, it's everything has to have consideration. And so preciseness among packaging, very critical today. How we design, how we develop, literally the fibers that we work with. To your point about pneumatics, does that pneumatics, the suction, does it get a hold of it, that surface very well? You know, does it contact? And how much space is needed in the contact of that robot so that it can manipulate product? All of those things are just so critical in the development. And then, of course, along the way, we're trying to introduce sustainability.
Well, this is just it. It's how, and this is why I know we're closing on automation, but automation and sustainability, right, and data. Right? This is all done, you know, certainly with analytics. You know, and stress testing and measuring with precision, product identification, identifying itself to the robot. Here I am, pick 3 of me, pack it this way, right? You know, so that we can get as much density, so you can have as much efficiency and
Leon, not even just pick those 3, but pick these 3 because they're going to expire.
Yeah,
Friday.
Literally these 3.
That's right.
I mean, that
literally these 3.
Yeah.
Right, and to do it in such a way that people can say, well, who's going to think? The robots are going to do it.
Yeah.
Right, and they're going to do it in an ecosystem that is programmed.
Right.
And so the programmatization, of the supply chain is something that we, as a leader in the packaging industry, our customers are going to rely on us for this, to say that we're compliant, that we're systematically compliant in ways that, you know, there isn't going to be room for give. I think, because the packaging, the automation ecosystem is not going to be forgiving,
right?
You know, and it's going to just play a very different role for us going forward.
And do you remember when, at retail we used to talk about, first in, first out, FIFO and LIFO?
LIFO.
Robots are going to make those decisions now.
Yeah.
I mean,
exactly.
When I said that, pick these three packages now.
Yeah.
Because perishables are what? Perished. Yeah. Okay? When they perish, guess what gets lost? Right. Profit.
Oh, yeah.
Profit gets lost. So the more efficient we can become in that with that smart package, the more profitability, the more productivity gets added into the value of the flywheel.
So these work together.
So all those things pour out.
We've talked about them as five separate print, but to be honest with you,
integrate.
They all work together.
Yes.
And that's what makes it so fascinating today.
What's so fascinating to me, too, with this conversation is that we began with a customer. We're really in with the customer here because so many of these things that we talked about are all behind the scenes to provide that customer with a value, with a great product and a value price.
Right. Yes.
That's what you said. I mean, because I thought you were so much clarity around where the shopper is today. That's not going to change. Inflation is probably here. It's going to stay pricing. Who knows? But I think pricing is still going to be elevated a bit for a while, and it may stay that way. So the consumer, with all this technology, either when they're at a brick and mortar or they go and open up their front door and pick up the package off the porch, all of this is the reason that's there.
Yeah.
With a value, with efficiency, and the right item at the right price, all of that is critical. And it's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's the closure of the value proposition.
But what you said, retail is so exciting today. Look, I mean, if we had a retail conversation 30 years ago, we would not be talking about most of this.
Yeah. Will we even be able to have it?
So it's so exciting, gentlemen. Wow, what a wonderful conversation.
Oh, thank you for having us. This has been great for us too.
Last thoughts, just some last thoughts from both of you. You've done such a wonderful job today. I can't wait to watch this, to learn more and to gather all of the information you've shared today. But some final thoughts.
As I talk to and mentor younger folks in the business and stuff, I would say this. There have been a lot of interesting pivotal times in my career where retail has shown me the excitement of the future, right? But I would say right now in our business, it's a wonderful time to be in packaging. It's a wonderful time to be working with retailers in exploring the value of packaging in their productivity, in the things that are important to them, to have that relationship with the consumer. It can be, I just think there's so much to be gained over this next period, be it 5-10 years, introduction of automation and then AI and all the things that are going to be at their disposal. I think it's just, it would be ill-advised to say that retail is dead. Retail is just on the cusp again of a phenomenal growth.
Right.
And I think it's an exciting time to be in and around it.
Yeah.
And in our business, it's an exciting time for our folks to be in packaging and be able to have these innovation discussions and talk about the science of paper and how it's going to be important in the future. Really excited for everyone in the business, really.
Perfect. Great.
I would say something really similar. I was thinking of this as the industry has made a lot of investments over the past several years. I think we are entering into a harvest phase now. So you have an invest phase and a harvest phase. I think we're entering into a harvest phase now where the investments that we've made in technology and in our RFID and in AI and some of the work that companies like Smurfit Westrock are doing around sustainability, these seeds that are in the soil are about to come out and start to work together in the garden of our industry. And I think the shopper will net benefit. But I think in this period of harvest as I'm sort of thinking about this through here, where you start to focus on the return now for all of these investments that we have, that the industry has made. We have to be 100% certain that in this period where we're gaining the fruit of all this, that we keep our eye on the shopper, because the concern I always have is that the shopper is moving faster than the industry. That we as an industry, and I'm not saying Smurfit Westrock, I'm saying the whole industry that supplies the shopper. The shopper's moving faster than we are, and we have to keep pace with that shopper. And I think if we do that, then this will be an extended harvest period, for the industry. And I think if we can do that, it's going to be an exciting time. This probably the next decade, where we're going to see a lot of these things, play themselves out in ways that I just don't. But it's we have to keep pace with the shopper.
Yeah,
Great.
She's moving faster than we are.
Well, Leon, Kerry, thank you again. It's been so wonderful having you. You have to come back.
okay.
Well, as long as you invite us, we'll be here. How's that?
You have to come back. Your knowledge, your insight on these topics today was exceptional. I know I have enjoyed it thoroughly. I know our viewers will enjoy this. I would tell you that I'm encouraged, I'm inspired by your comments today, your knowledge. As a person that loves retail my whole career, what you have done today has encouraged me. And to our guests, thank you so much for coming. To our viewers, thank you. It's been great having you. Thank you for what you're doing. You continue to do just great things with us. You talk about it. I get wonderful notes from many of you on LinkedIn. Thank you for that. Let us know how we can improve always. You are continuing to grow our viewership. We're now in multiple countries, I think 30-plus countries, so thank you for that. We really appreciate your time. Again, gentlemen, it's been a pleasure having you. I look forward to our next conversation. Thank you all. Have a nice day.
Thank you. Thank you.